Welcome, everyone, to Powered and Protected by Rainbows. I'm, of course, your host, Matt Haslam. And today we are doing our first official Rainbow Cast, which is our podcast of our PBR show. It is so exciting to finally get to be in this sort of medium where nothing of what you're about to hear is scripted at all. Like, there are some talking points that I pretty much have memorized in my head of what we want to get to. But for the most part, this is not scripted at all, so I really hope that I don't mess it up in the first episode that we ever do. That would be bad, but I would love to know your thoughts of this entire new facet to how we can interact with one another. So please do leave those thoughts in the comments of the podcast or the video when you're watching it or listening to it. I'm hoping you can listen to this very, very soon on Spotify and Apple and all those kind of devices. So, that's all coming as soon as they approve of the channel, which they should be doing very, very soon. Anyway, so there's lots of news stories that we talked about in our main episode today, but I kind of want to jump into another story that came out this past month, at least to me. So if you're not aware, maybe like a month ago, Pete Buttigieg was doing a town hall for the Equality Town Hall for CNN. Was it CNN? It was CNN. He was doing this entire town hall, and along with Elizabeth Warren and Cory Booker, all three of them said that they would support the decriminalization of knowingly giving someone HIV without telling them. And so basically, if you're not aware, there's this current law that's, I believe, a federal law. Don't quote me on that part, but it's a law that basically says if you know you have HIV and you knowingly give it to someone without telling them prior that you have HIV, then you could be criminally charged. And it honestly, in my opinion anyway, it sounded like a great law on paper because, hey, if you knowingly giving them this without telling them, then it stands to reason you should be punished for that, right? And this wasn't exclusive to LGBTQ. I mean, typically HIV is targeted as, oh, well, this is this LGBTQ disease, but really, I mean, straight people get the same disease, so it's not an LGBTQ only thing, as a lot of people think it is. But with that said, that law was made, from everything I've heard, it was made back in the 70s, 80s, I believe. And so now that we have made advancements in our scientific process and we have made advancements in our medical systems to now being able to have a drug called PrEP, which, if you're not aware, this is this drug where you can take it and it prevents you, for the most part, it's not 100% guarantee, but for the most part, allows you to be with someone and not get HIV. Again, it's not 100% certain all the time, but for the most part, it at least reduces your risk of getting HIV if you're with someone who has it. So a lot of people in the hookup culture and one-night stands, a lot of them take PrEP to basically counteract that risk a little bit. So that's great that we have this drug now that does this, and there's other drugs that do the same thing. It's just that's the main name brand of it all. So that's the one I pretty much reference when I'm talking about it. And we also have drugs now that, if you have HIV, make HIV undetectable. So it brings down the level of HIV to a point where you're always going to have HIV. There's no official cure yet, as of the date of this recording, but at the very least, it makes it undetectable. And so scientists have this term that they use all the time called U equals U, and a lot of people don't understand that term, but it means undetectable equals untransmittable, meaning if you are on these drugs and you are undetectable, like you can't trace it, then you can't give it to someone at all. So if you're on those drugs, you can't give it to someone who doesn't have it. And so the main argument now is, well, if you're on the drugs that allow you to be undetectable and untraceable, and if the other person is on the drug PrEP or a similar one that basically, prevents them, in theory, from getting it, well, then you can't give it to someone at all. And so what Elizabeth Warren, Cory Booker, and Pete Buttigieg all came out and said during that town hall on CNN was basically that, they're for the distribution and federal funding of drugs like that, and for the cure for HIV funding as well. And so they want to make that funding available and make those drugs available so that basically this isn't a problem. And so they all three of them said they're for the taking away of that law to criminalize knowingly giving someone HIV. And so the question becomes, well, should we take that law away? Should it be decriminalized, And I've been having this debate in my own head for the past, months since I been told about it happening, and I've been doing research ever since then on this, and I'm just so confused. And so a part of me really wants to bring this up because I want your opinions in those comments down below of what exactly does this mean for us? Do you feel like it's good to decriminalize it? Do you feel like it's a bad thing to decriminalize it because we should still have that law in case someone isn't on the drugs to make it undetectable and untransmittable? Should we have those laws in case someone is, not on PrEP or a similar drug that doesn't have HIV currently? It's all about trust. Should we still have that law no matter what? Or should we get rid of the law because now we have those drugs and now we just need to fund it federally to get those drugs out there? What is the real solution to all this? And I would love to know your thoughts on what overall the LGBTQ community thinks of the decriminalization of that law. Because in the room during that CNN town hall, it seemed as if everyone was clapping along with Pete Buttigieg, with Elizabeth Warren, and with Cory Booker when they said that they're for making it, decriminalizing it. And so I sort of want to know the thought process of, well, why, what makes you happy to see that? And what makes you in support of decriminalizing it? I would love to know that. And is there something hidden in that law that I'm possibly just not seeing that makes it a whole lot worse? And, there's a million different things that I want to know your opinions on. So please do leave them in the comments down below. I'm naturally curious when someone brings something to my attention and I look it up and I can't really figure it out on my own. Normally I'm able to just look at something and go, okay, this is right or it's wrong, or at least in my opinion of what it is, But on this one, I'm kind of torn on, is it right or is it wrong? I don't know what the true answer is here. So I would love to know your opinions. Now, anyway, on to the next topic, because there were so many stories this past month. We did our EASC campaign in the past 2 months here since we've had a news show. That's why we missed our episode in November for our news show, because we were so busy doing our Equality Act of Schuylkill County campaign. That, it's so hard to talk about because I want to say so much, but I'm only allowed to say just a tiny bit of what actually happened behind the scenes. We went there. We were all excited over this thing, and my team and I were working for 7 months trying to do all of this research and get it all ready. And we had everything down. We were like, we know this is possible. Let's do it. We know there are county ordinances in Schuylkill County, Pennsylvania. We know all of this. Let's go for it. Why not just shoot for the moon? And so on November 13th, 2019, we presented this to the county commissioners, which include George Helkovich, Frank Stoudemire, and Gary Hess. We asked them, hey, can you at least look into this? And their response to us was, well, there are no county ordinances, and we can't do that even if we wanted to. And here's this number of SARC, who's another organization. And we were like, well, wait a minute. In 7 months of research, we never heard of this group called SARC. So why are we just hearing about them now? And why is their information not made available, online on the county website if they're county funded? We had all these questions, and then we were like, well, how come there's county ordinances on the website then? Like, if you say that we don't have county ordinances, how come we have them? And all of these things sort of all came out in the next 2 weeks of that campaign. It was just crazy for about 3-4 weeks there. And then we went back to them during their next meeting, and we're like, I was on the news. I was on the in front of a camera. Normally I'm the guy for news behind the camera filming a story. That day I was, in front of a camera getting interviewed by Fox 56 and by BRC TV 13. It was just insane. So I was really happy to get the exposure for the campaign out there. And then we went back to the next meeting and said to them, hey, can you sign this letter of endorsement? Because that's something they did promise to us. They have not gotten back to us yet on that, but we're hoping to hear back from the county solicitor, which is basically like their lawyer. We're hoping to hear back from him soon to, get that letter of endorsement to the state, and that way they can pass the State Fairness Act, which is the Equality Act of Pennsylvania. So we're hoping all of that comes shortly after the holidays here. It's the holiday season, so it's absolutely ridiculously crazy right now. So I don't expect to, hear in the next week or something, any kind of news on that front. So that's sort of like the progress we made with the whole campaign right now. I know we're working on a bunch of things behind the scenes to collect data and to create hot maps of where there's a lot going on. And if you want to be involved with the whole process of getting a Pennsylvania Equality Act or a federal Equality Act, then please do hit me up. My email is mhaslam@paequality.com. You can, email me there and get in touch, because we would love your help. And that's something I do work with nonprofits like the Pennsylvania Equality Project, because it really does help me manage my depression, and it helps me just feel my worth in society. And so, and I really truly believe in everything we're doing. So there's a lot going on over at Pennsylvania Equality Project right now. And they're working with Powered by Rainbows on this whole Equality Act of Schuylkill County initiative. And we're now working with SARC. So we have a meeting with them coming up that, lots of great things are happening. So, definitely get in touch if you want to help out with that whole effort. We have a lot of data, and you're going to be seeing reports coming out. I was told December 22nd. I'll probably be sharing them to the Powered by Rainbows channel page on Facebook. So go check that out as well. But December 22nd, we're publishing the coming out results. We did a coming out survey over at Pennsylvania Equality Project. So we're going to be releasing that data, or at least a majority of the data on it on December 22nd. So that's coming out. So that's really exciting. And we have other surveys coming up really shortly that I know you're all going to love, because they sound really fun. Anyway, on to the news of the week, or the month, December 2019 here, because wow, the stories this month. The Hallmark thing shocked me. I was like, why would Hallmark pull an ad? They know they're going to get controversy for pulling this ad. And yet they did it. If they never pulled the ad, some people would be upset over, oh, it's a gay ad on this network. But overall, people would understand, hey, they're just trying to make money. They're a network. That's what they're for. It's a for-profit entity trying to make money. You can't blame them for taking money. The thing is that by calling attention to it, by taking away this ad and pulling it from the network, it just made this ad so much more popular and called way more attention to it than anything else ever would. Like, Zola executives must have looked at this, and as soon as they heard it being called out on like major news networks like NBC and CBS and all these others, they must have been just like rolling in it, like laughing their heads off of like, wow, that like thousands of dollars we've spent for this ad to be on Hallmark, that worked out in our favor because it got us millions of dollars in exposure. Really, it paid off in dividends for them. So I'm really happy for Zola on this, and thank you to Zola for being inclusive like you were and making an ad like that. Just wow. Like, I would love to be that company or a company like that, to spend a little bit and be like, oh yeah, and then just get millions of dollars in exposure from it. That would be amazing. That's the best kind of marketing that a company could get. So all of that was happening, and I'm just like, why did they pull it? And it's great that they retracted their decision and they put it back, and it's great. But at the same time, why did we need public outcry in the first place? Just come on. Why did we need to speak up and say, Hallmark, what the hell are you doing? Why was that needed? If you're not homophobic, if you're not transphobic, why not just leave the ad up, let it go? No one cares. The minority might have a little tiny tidbit, but for the most part, no one cares. Whereas you called attention to it, and now everyone cares. Now the majority cares. Unfortunately, if you look at the target demographics of Hallmark Channel, it's from at least a lot of opinions, it's an older and conservative market for their demographics. And so you sort of have to say to yourself, well, to their key demographic, it might be a big deal. But at the same time, so they might be upset right now that their viewers might be upset right now that they decided to put the ad back on. But at the same time, like, Hallmark allowed a gay ad to be on their network in the first place. If they didn't want to do that, they should have turned that ad down before they ever let it on in the first place. If that's the stance you want to take, then take it. Own it. Why put the ad out there and then say, no, that was a mistake, and then say, no, our mistake was a mistake? It makes no sense. Just pick a direction and go with it. And, at the same time, they're talking about putting gay lead actors on their movies. And that sounds like a wonderful idea. And I really want to see it happen. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen this holiday season. Now, what you also have to keep in mind is something that I've thought about deeply over the past week since hearing about the story, is that look at what they're doing right now. A lot of people want to see Christmas movies, and Hallmark is the channel to go see Christmas movies. Right now, the major networks still have regular programming on until like Christmas Eve. So if you want to have your kids tune into a Christmas movie, you're probably going to choose a network like Hallmark. And so there's a big advantage to them right now to make news like this, to be in the public eye, whether it's good or a bad thing. To their target demographic, pulling a homosexual ad off of their network would have been a good thing to their target demographic of conservatives. So, very religious people, So that's good for them to get some exposure. But now that they backed out of it, it's like that might not be as good at the moment. But again, controversy, it doesn't matter. Good or bad press is a good thing for a network. So, fixing my microphone, sorry. So by saying anything right now, for having this huge controversy right before the holiday season, now you have a lot of people going, oh yeah, Hallmark has Christmas movies, let me watch. So their numbers probably were helped regardless of this. It's just a matter of getting in the news at all helps your network. It doesn't matter how you get into the news. Getting into the news helps your network because now people tune in to see that ad, or people tune in to just in general watch your network. That's how networks work every single day of the year. So there's a big part of me that thinks, hey, maybe they knew this was going to cause controversy. They knew they were going to back out of it as soon as that controversy got too bad. But let's create a bunch of noise right now. Let's create a bunch of news because we want viewership. There's a part of me that has that opinion. The other part is like, well, what they did was still homophobic. So they now have to prove to us all that they're not homophobic in order to gain our trust back. So definitely like GLAAD organization said that they are going to be looking at Hallmark over the next couple months to make sure that they keep to their word here and keep being LGBTQ friendly. So we shall see reports from GLAAD come out probably monthly or at least quarterly in the future. So we'll be keeping an eye on GLAAD organization as they kind of report on how Hallmark's doing on that front. Then the next major story that happened this past month was Chick-Fil-A. Like, oh my God. So like I said on the regular show, I am so tired of talking about Chick-fil-A that it is unbelievable. I have talked about Chick-fil-A way too much on a program. And I feel like every time I talk about them, there's always someone that comments on the show of like, I'm going to go get Chick-fil-A now. And I'm like, wow, you're just completely tone deaf to what I was talking about. But those comments are deleted, by the way. If you haven't recognized, all the hateful comments on my channel are always deleted right away because I don't put up with that kind of stuff. So rest assured, if you're reading the comments, as long as it's, and I approve of all comments before they're posted nowadays because we've had death threats and all this kind of other stuff on the show. So I don't want to like allow comments right away. So anything that's like semi-inappropriate, I hold for review and I'll approve of them weekly normally. So that's the thing. If you don't see your comment right away, know it's probably being held for review. It might be perfectly fine. I just need to get through them once a week or once every couple of days. I typically go through them. But anyway, Chick-fil-A. I get off topic when I don't have a script in front of me. I am terribly sorry, people. But so Chick-fil-A decided midway through 2019, I believe, that they're going to stop giving donations to anti-gay groups and anti-LGBTQ groups, which is a great decision. But it only came after their restaurants in United Kingdom weren't supported enough and like were shut down in a day or two because of their donations. Like there was public outcry and no one wanted to support them in United Kingdom. So they had to shut down their efforts in UK for right now because of their donations. So, they've realized that their money really does have power here and they're not spending it wisely, that people don't want to support them if the money they support their business with is inevitably going to an anti-gay charity, right? So Chick-fil-A decides midway through, I believe maybe, I want to say September of 2019. Don't quote me on that. Again, this is unscripted, so I don't have it in front of me. But they decided this year that they're going to stop giving donations to anti-gay and anti-LGBTQ charities for the time being. They never promised in perpetuity. They promised right now. And so they said, well, we're going to review who we give our donations to every year, once a year. And that's fair, to review what you want to do as a company once a year. As a company owner, I completely understand that and I sympathize with it. So I'm total agreement there. Now, here's the thing. Their tax returns for 2018 were finally released publicly recently. And so people are seeing that they gave $1.8 million to these anti-gay charities like Salvation Army and the athletes, the Catholic athletes, whatever it was. And so they're saying, how come you gave all this money to these anti-gay charities? And it's like, no, those charities were donated to back in 2018 before they said they would stop the donations. So that's completely fair. Like, don't freak out over something that they did before they promised not to do those things. That's not fair to Chick-Fil-A. And I'll be the first to come to their defense for that when we're judging them unfairly. Now, in 2019, unfortunately, when you do your tax returns as a major company like that, you say, oh, we gave to these charities, and you list the charity name that you gave to and how much you gave to them year round. I don't believe that there's a way to actually see on that form when donations specifically were made. I believe it's just how much you gave to them year round as a total. And so on their 2019 returns, which will be released in 2020 from the IRS publicly, because I believe they have shareholders and all that kind of stuff. So it's released publicly in 2020. And when it's released in 2020, people are going to see, hey, they gave to these anti-gay charities. How come they did that? And again, they made their promise to stop those donations midway through or 3/4 of the way through 2019 here. So yeah, there's still going to be anti-gay donations from the first half or first 3/4 of 2019. It's not fair to say, hey, you promised not to do this. How come you're doing it? So I imagine people are going to get upset in 2020 when those tax returns are released. But it's like, hey, they promised to do it midway through. You can't judge them for the beginning of doing something before they promised not to do it again. So I know that's probably going to be something in 2020 coming up in the news of Chick-Fil-A still donates even though they promised not to. Like, yeah, but I don't believe on that form there's any way to see before and after a certain date of when the donations were actually made on what day. So we're going to have to wait and see. Unfortunately, unless they do release the date specifics of when donations were made, then we're going to probably have to wait until 2021 to see their 2020 donations and see if they really held true to their word of not making donations from that point forward to anti-gay charities, at least in the short future. So I think we're just going to have to wait until 2021, which is a long time. And I think that's what Chick-fil-A is sort of counting on, is this is going to take a long time. And the longer we can make this whole process for the public to wait, the more they're going to just forget about us. And I think that's what my opinion on it is, I think that's what they're hoping for. I think they're just like, hey, let's say this right now to kind of get our PR back. But, by 2021, everyone's going to forget about it. Hopefully, there's still people out there like myself that will be keeping an eye on them, and GLAAD organization and probably keeping an eye on them to make sure. But for the time being, there's nothing we can say definitively of after this date they stopped it, because tax returns are only released once a year. So, there's that. But the other side of it is Chick-fil-A, again, said back with their promise that they were going to stop their donations this year. And once a year, they're going to review what they want to donate to. And so let's say, for instance, that they review things next year and figure out what are we going to donate to in 2021. And if they see from whenever they made that promise to stop donating to anti-gay charities, if they saw from that point that all of a sudden, more people bought their chicken, more people bought their products, more people went to their stores. If they see that their revenue increased from that point forward, they're going to stop giving to anti-gay charities in general because it helps them. You know, they're making more money. They're a for-profit company that wants to make as much as possible. So if revenue went up, they're going to follow that trend. However, if they see that revenue went down because their conservative, like religious customers didn't want to support them anymore because they stopped the anti-gay charity donations, then they're going to keep making those donations, you know, because it's worth it for them. It's a cost of doing business then, right? But the worst case scenario I think would be is if they basically just saw revenue stay the same. Of, let's say, this entire decision made no difference at all to their bottom line. They're going to keep donating to the charities that they want to donate to, and they don't care about public outcry from that point forward because it doesn't matter to their bottom line. They know that from that point forward. So I think we're going to have to wait until 2020 to see what numbers actually happened, how the revenue actually was increased, decreased, or stayed the same from that. I think they're waiting to see that as well. But I think it'd be really interesting to look at the books at that point and know, you know, if it did better, if it did worse, if it stayed the same. So I think we're going to have to wait on that. But unfortunately, out of those three options of it doing better, it doing worse, or it staying the same, 2/3 of those options are bad for the LGBTQ community. Of if they see it staying the same and the revenue didn't change at all, or if they see their bottom line being hurt because they stopped those donations, then they're going to make those donations no matter what. If they see the revenue increased, then they're going to keep not donating to anyone like that. Now, the bad part about this is something that was actually covered in an expose that Hassan Minhaj did on his Netflix show, The Patriot Act, which I'll probably leave a link to that whole episode down below, but I highly encourage watching it because it's a whole episode about like the billionaires of the world donating money to causes, right? And in it, it kind of does this whole expose section where it covers how someone can donate money without being traceable. So here's the thing with Chick-Fil-A. They could, if they wanted to, let's say, for example, I'm not saying specifically one person because I don't know any of the executives of Chick-Fil-A, but let's say, for example, that an executive at Chick-Fil-A who's getting paid millions of dollars a year decides, well, you know, the company doesn't want to support anti-gay charities, but I do, right? So let's say the executive wants to support an anti-gay charity personally. If he or she wants to take their personal earnings and donate some of that to an anti-gay charity or an anti-trans charity, then they are perfectly allowed to do that. There's no law on it. And even according to the promise that Chick-fil-A made, it doesn't stop them from personally doing it because they promised as a company not to do it. So even still, it doesn't stop them from saying, you know what, as a company, we want to just, this executive still wants to donate to this anti-gay charity, so they're going to still do it because it's still a tax deduction for them as well, keep in mind. So they're still allowed to donate to whatever they want, no matter what we do as the public. And there's no real way to trace that. There's no real way for us to see that because that's a personal tax income IRS form. So I don't believe there's any real way for us to, look up all the executives of Chick-fil-A and make sure they're personally not donating to the charities anyway, And even still, let's say the company of Chick-fil-A decides, you know what, we said we're going to promise to stop giving donations to anti-gay charities, but you know what we can do is we could just give said executive a raise of X number of dollars and tell them donate that money to an anti-gay charity. personally. So the company could still get around that whole promise by just making a few little adjustments in payroll, you know? Another thing that they could do, and this is something that, again, Hassan Minaj in the Patriot Act show kind of covered, was they could start a 501c, I believe 3 or 4. It might be a 501c4, might be a 501c3 nonprofit. And basically, what that means is Chick-fil-A could start a nonprofit organization all of their own and have executives of that nonprofit completely separate, or have like their wives or whatever, or their husbands be the executives of that nonprofit, or even themselves, really. They could. They can start this nonprofit for little to no money at all. And then all of a sudden, once this nonprofit is started, they can donate as much money as they want to this nonprofit. And again, it's all untraceable. They get to claim it as a deduction for a charitable donation on their tax returns, but they don't have to release what the name of that charity or what the name of that nonprofit is, because it's a 501c. So it basically allows them to donate millions upon millions of dollars without anyone knowing what they donated to as a company. And even still, if you donate to that 501c, the 501c doesn't have to report where it got its money from. They just have to report that we got this money. And as long as everyone's being truthful about how much money they gave and how much they got, then IRS doesn't really care at all what the names are of anyone. So this 501c could get a whole bunch of money in from Chick-fil-A and donate to whatever charities it wants to as a nonprofit. So there are plenty of loopholes around this whole process, around this whole promise that Chick-fil-A made of, we're not going to give to any anti-gay charities anymore for the time being. Well, yeah, you as a company aren't going to make a direct donation to Salvation Army or whatever group, but you could very easily just give it to a 501c or give it to someone personally, and then that person gives it. You know, there's nothing stopping them from actually supporting anti-gay charities, no matter what we do. They're going to do whatever they want to do with the money that they have. That let's just face that fact. Unfortunately, this is how the process works. There is no way to have a government of any kind, nor should there be a way for us to say, you're not allowed to spend money on what you want to spend it on. Now, some of us might not agree with them supporting anti-gay charities, but at the same time, it's their money. Just like no one should be able to tell you, hey, you can't give to a pro-LGBTQ charity. No one should be able to, in my eyes, tell someone else you can't give to anything you want either, because that's what you personally believe. Now, public outcry could tell them maybe you want to stay clear of that, but again, it all has to go back to their bottom line, and they have to see the numbers on this. Unfortunately, it's not about what's right or wrong to a company like Chick-fil-A. It's about what their bottom line is. If you think for a second that they made this decision out of their moral compass, then you're wrong. They made it because they were hurt financially. They made it because they were trying to enter the market of United Kingdom and weren't allowed to because they had a lot of public outcry. They were virtually shut down by the public for their donations to anti-LGBTQ charities. So they finally said, hey, fine, if you're going to shut us out of a whole country, then we're going to stop our anti-gay donations and we'll try again. It was financial for them. That was all. And the worst part is that they could now go back into the United Kingdom, put another restaurant up, or just reopen the one they had. And now, hey, we did the right thing, and you should come support us. And they can get support. And there's already LGBTQ people out there saying, well, now we can support Chick-fil-A, right? Now we can eat there, right? because they're no longer a bad company that supports anti-gay charities. Like, that's what they said publicly, but there's loopholes and ways around it that you should probably be aware of. So it doesn't mean they're actually doing that. It means as a company, they're not writing a check directly to that charity anymore. For the time being, again, they're going to have to wait until 2020 to see the numbers themselves and make that decision for 2021. But for the time being, it's a numbers game for them. And for the time being, they're not going to do it by writing a check directly. They're going to do it in other ways if they truly still want to do it and make donations to those same charities. They could decide, hey, we're just going to lay off of anti-gay donations for a while and see how it goes for us. And we're not going to do any 501c things. We're not going to donate through certain people anymore. We're going to just stop that in general. They could do that. They could be completely morally right and completely, fair to us and stop all their donations right away like they said they would. But there are loopholes so you should probably be aware of. So I, again, will leave that episode link below to Patriot Act so you can see kind of how that whole process works. On to the next story on our docket. So there was a lot that happened this month, but one of the other things that happened was the school in Missouri that kind of really made me angry. These people wanted to have a Pride Day, and then other kids in the school decided to bring a Confederate flag in. Now, here's the thing. The school should have said, hey, you're not allowed Confederate flags in general because they're something for Confederates. They tried to take over the Union. You shouldn't be flying that in general. Why did you bring... If it's for a history class, sure, fine. But it wasn't. Why are you flying that at all? It's... Anymore, the Confederate flag has become the anti-LGBTQ flag. It has become the homophobic and transphobic flag that those people use anymore in protest to us. So it's sort of this thing where, hey, anytime you see it, yes, it's used against African American people for the whole slavery thing, of people that, for some reason, think that we all should be treated fairly and equally under the law. Sorry, there's a little satirical comedy in the middle of the show. But, a lot of people in the country still have that white nationalism, is it called? White supremacy. There's new names for it, but it used to, the Confederate flag just used to be used against that whole and racism thing, and now that Confederate flag is being used against LGBTQ. It's like, well, wait a minute, we're fighting two different fights, but really the same fight. We all should be treated equally and fairly under the law here, and for it to be at all flown in protest in a school, that just is wrong in general. It should have been confiscated, and they should have been punished for even doing that in general, no matter what they were saying. They should have been punished for flying a Confederate flag in protest, because it's just not what you do in 2019. Come on. The school should know better on that front, and they should be punished. And yes, you have the right to protest in America. You have a right to do all this, and I'm not objecting to that. What I'm saying is that flag means a lot, and people have to realize that flag means a lot. And when you're flying in protest and calling out anti-gay and anti-trans slurs, the school has to realize the severity of that hate, and they need to act swiftly. They need to punish the kids that were doing that. Otherwise, you can say all you want, we want to learn from this experience and bring the kids together. We want to do, but at the same time, if these kids learn that hey, it's perfectly fine if you call out racial or call out anti-gay slurs. You're not going to be punished for it. Well, then next time when they do that, even if there's no flag in general, they know they're not going to get punished then. So what's to stop them from creating hate in the future? And what's to stop the LGBTQ kids of that school from feeling like they're going to be called out and be called names and be beat up? What's to stop all of that? Like, how do the LGBTQ kids feel in this situation? The school needs to realize what position they're putting their LGBTQ kids in right now. And they need to realize that they need to punish these kids immediately. Otherwise, this situation could turn out a whole lot worse than it already has. So, honestly, it's a great thing that the Missouri school kids wanted to have a Pride Day at school, but the school should have seen, hey, there's pride flags out. We need to be very, very cautious today. And we need to look out for any anti-LGBTQ movements or protests or whatever, and we need to shut those down. We need to make sure that the kids know they are loved. Plain and simply, we need to make sure they know they are loved and accepted by their school, because those kids were doing this whole Pride Day thing because other LGBTQ kids in their school were being not accepted by their parents at home. So they wanted to show their love and support and acceptance at school. It was wonderful that these students decided to do this. And I commend them for doing this sort of Pride Day thing at school to show their fellow classmates how much love they have for them. But yeah, the school really messed up on this one. They should have been a whole lot more supportive than they were, and actually punished the kids for flying the flying the Confederate flag and for calling out anti-LGBTQ slurs. That is beyond me why the school wouldn't act when their students are bullying other students. That's what this is. It is bullying. And the school not standing up for the victims of bullying, it is a little... It's depressing to think that a school wouldn't stick up for their kids, So that is sort of where I'll leave that story. And that's where I'll leave this first ever podcast episode of PBR, of our Rainbow Cast, because it's exciting. And kind of like realizing now that I just left that whole episode on a cliffhanger of a really bad story. But hey, that's where our stories kind of led tonight. And we will be back hopefully next week with a Christmas episode. So stay tuned for that. I'm hoping a really, really special episode coming out next week. And I don't want to... Should I tell you? I mean, you made it this far into the Rainbow Cast, so I guess I can tell you what the Christmas special is going to be this year. I think you deserve that little bit of reward for clicking over to our podcast and watching the whole thing. So our Christmas special this year is for my uncle, Jeffrey Blake, who was gay as well. And he died before I was born, but the kind of landmark things that his generation did allowed for my generation to have pride events and to celebrate who we are openly. So it's sort of comparing the two generations a little bit and thanking his generation for what they did. So that's our Christmas special this year. And by the way, we have a Christmas special because I came out on Christmas Day back in 2015. So was it 2015? I think it was 2015. It's been a while now. So I came out on Christmas Day. So I feel like every year on Christmas or around Christmas, I need to do some sort of special to pay honor to that anniversary of mine. And, also what you should do right now is go over to our Facebook page. Actually the Facebook page of Pennsylvania Equality Project. We made a whole blog post about helping with depression this time of year, because LGBTQ people suffer with depression more around the holidays than any other time of the year. So and depression acts up more around this time of year than any other time of year. So go over there, get some useful tips, tricks, and advice on how to deal with depression this time of year. And hopefully you can like read the other news stories that we link to, or get the numbers of the hotlines that we link there. So check those out, and that way you can get help when you need it, but know that you're not alone and that you are loved and accepted. So go check that blog post out. It's really, really informative, and I hope helps. I'm not a trained counselor in any way, but I hope it helps like you understand that you're not alone, that you are loved and accepted. So, it's worth a little read, and I will leave a link to that post down below as well, so you can check that out. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us for our first ever Rainbow Cast of PBR. It's so fun. Let us know what you thought about the Rainbow Cast, what you thought about this podcast down in those comments. I really want to know, because I want to do this for season 3 for our news episodes every month, hopefully. And I want to do these podcast episodes for other episodes throughout the months and stuff in season 3. I want this to be a normal thing where we post a podcast, and it would be so much fun to just do this podcast like every once in a while at the very least, so that I can kind of interact with you more and talk with you without like a script a little bit. The normal show, I feel, needs to have a script in order to keep it under the 15-minute mark that we try to hit every week. And that way it's not too long. That way people click on the videos. But with this one, I get to interact with you more, and we get to talk about a story a whole lot more, the more details, more of my opinion. And I get to get more of your opinion on the stories as well. So again, those comments down below really do help. Let us know what you think of this whole idea. Is there a possible way we can use this Rainbow podcast in another way that we're not thinking of right now? So leave your ideas down below as well. If you like it, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and keep subscribed for plenty of more great gay content to come in the future. I don't know where that ending outro was going, but anyway, thank you so much for joining us. I am Matt Haslam. This has been PBR, and have a gay day, everyone. Bye for now. And again, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and may all your season be rainbow and bright. Bye for now.